Rai Charan had been a servant at the house since Anukul was only a boy. Anukul went on to study law, and when he got married, his wife gave birth to a son. Rai Charan became the child's attendant. New wonders came in their turn. When the baby began to toddle, that was to Rai Charan an epoch in human history. When he called his father Baba and his mother Mama and Rai Charan Channa, then Rai Charan's happiness knew no bounds. He went out to tell the news to all the world. About this time, Anukul was transferred to a district on the banks of the Padma. On his way through Calcutta, he bought his son a little go-cart. He bought him also a yellow satin waistcoat, a gold-laced cap, and some gold bracelets and anklets. Rai Charan made the baby wear all of this with ceremonial pride whenever they went for a walk. Then came the rainy season, and day after day the rain poured down in torrents. The hungry river Padma, like an enormous serpent, swallowed down terraces, villages, cornfields, and covered with its flood the tall grasses on the banks. One afternoon the rain cleared. It was cloudy, but cool and bright. Rai Charan's little despot did not want to stay in on such a fine afternoon. His lordship climbed into the go-cart. Rai Charan, between the shafts, dragged him slowly along till he reached the rice fields on the banks of the river. There was no one in the fields, and no boat on the stream. Close by on a mud flat stood a large kadamb tree in full flower. My lord, the baby, looked at it with greedy eyes, and Rai Charan knew his meaning. But Rai Charan had no wish that evening to go splashing knee-deep through the mud to reach the flowers. So he quickly pointed his finger in the opposite direction, calling out, "Look, baby, look! Look at the bird!" And with all sorts of curious noises he pushed the go-cart rapidly away from the tree. But the little master's mind was made up, and Rai Charan was at his wits' end. "Very well, baby," he said at last. "You sit still in the cart, and I'll go and get you the pretty flower. Only mind you don't go near the water." The moment Rai Charan had gone, his little master's thoughts went off at racing speed to the forbidden water. The baby saw the river rushing by, splashing and gurgling as it went. He got down stealthily from the go-cart and toddled off towards the river. On his way he picked up a small stick and leaned over the bank of the stream, pretending to fish. Rai Charan had plucked a handful of flowers from the tree and was carrying them back in the end of his cloth, with his face wreathed in smiles. But when he reached the go-cart, there was no one there. He looked on all sides, and there was no one there. He looked back at the cart, and there was no one there. In that first terrible moment, his blood froze within him. Before his eyes, the whole universe swam round like a dark mist. From the depth of his broken heart, he gave one piercing cry. "Master! Master! Little master!" But no voice answered. Channa. As the evening approached, Rai Charan went back to the bungalow and fell at the feet of his mistress. She shook him and questioned him and asked him repeatedly where he had left the child, but all he could say was that he knew nothing. Though everyone held the opinion that the Padma had swallowed the child, there was a lurking doubt left in the mind. The mother went so far in her wild grief as to think it possible that Raicharan had stolen the child. The baby had gold ornaments on his body. She called Raicharan aside with piteous entreaty and said, "Raicharan, give me back my baby. Give me back my child. Take from me any money you ask, but give me back my child." Raicharan only beat his forehead in reply. His mistress ordered him out of the house. Raicharan went back to his own village. Up to this time, he had had no son, and there was no hope that any child would now be born to him. But it came about before the end of a year that his wife gave birth to a son and died. Phelna, for that was the name Raicharan's son was given, soon began to talk. It learned to say Baba and Mama with a baby accent. When Raicharan heard those familiar sounds, the mystery suddenly became clear. The little master could not cast off the spell of his Channa, and therefore he had been reborn in his own house. When once he had come to this conclusion, Raicharan gave himself over, body and soul, to the new baby, and became its devoted attendant. He began to bring it up as if it were the son of a rich man. He bought a go-cart, a yellow satin waistcoat, and a gold-embroidered cap. He melted down the ornaments of his dead wife and made gold bangles and anklets. At last, the time came for the boy to go to school. Raicharan sold his small piece of land and went to Calcutta. There he got employment with great difficulty as a servant and sent Phelna to school. He spared no pains to give him the best education, the best clothes, the best food. Meanwhile, he himself lived on a mere handful of rice. 12 years passed away in this manner. The boy was able to read and write well. He was bright and healthy and good-looking. Raicharan grew older and older. Then, one day, Raicharan and Phelna boarded a train and went off to Baraset, where Anukul was a magistrate. The entire journey Raicharan sat silently. His son had no idea why they were going to Baraset. It was a Sunday. There was no magistrate's court sitting. Anukul and his wife were sitting outside in their veranda. Anukul's wife was still broken down with grief. She had had no other child. At 10 o'clock, Raicharan came leading Phelna by the hand. At first, the husband and wife could not recognize old Raicharan, but Raicharan bowed his head and joined his hands together. Then, looking at the magistrate's wife, he said, "It was not Padma that had stolen your child. It was I." Saying this, he brought Phelna in front of him with a slight push of his hand. Anukul's wife, without a question, took the boy into her lap and was wild with excitement, sometimes laughing, sometimes weeping, touching him, kissing his hair and his forehead, and gazing into his face with hungry, eager eyes. The boy was very good-looking and dressed like a gentleman's son. The heart of Anukul brimmed over with a sudden rush of affection. He looked at Raicharan with severe eyes and added, "Raicharan, you must not stay here. You cannot be forgiven for your sin." "Where shall I go, master?" said Raicharan in a choking voice, folding his hands. "I am old. Who will take in an old man as a servant?" The mistress said, "Let him stay. My child will be pleased. I forgive him." But Anukul did not allow him to stay. "No," he said, "he cannot be forgiven for what he has done.